This is Khanna, the progressive Democrat congressman from California's 17th district. On June 20th, Khanna appeared on the I've Had It podcast with Jennifer Welch and was talking about the world's first trillionaire, Elon Musk.
And people say, well, don't you believe in entrepreneurship and innovation? Sure, but that doesn't mean that you accumulate $1 trillion. That's because we've had low corporate tax rates. That's because we haven't taxed stock buybacks. That's because we haven't had collective bargaining. That's because we haven't had appropriate marginal tax rates. So it's a lot of things in a rigged economy that have allowed for this kind of accumulation.
According to Khanna, building the world's most successful electric vehicle company and revolutionizing space travel with reusable rockets has absolutely nothing to do with hard work or ingenuity. One only becomes successful because the rules are rigged. But then, Congressman Khanna made a very dubious claim.
For 5% tax one time on Elon Musk, you could have universal childcare in America, $10 a day for every family. That's one person, one time, 5%, and he wouldn't even miss it because the market would grow by 15% and his wealth would still grow. And yet they're opposed to something as basic as that.
So let's break down Khanna's math here. 5% of Musk's $1 trillion net worth is $50 billion. A national $10 a day universal childcare program, like the Democrat-proposed Child Care for Every Community Act, would cost the federal government an estimated $100 to $200 billion per year, which means that magical one-time $50 billion tax on Musk would fund this permanent government program for exactly 3 to 6 months. Womp womp. Obviously, Jennifer Welch and Khanna think that Elon Musk keeps $1 trillion sitting in a Chase checking account. He does not. So how does a guy with $1 trillion in equity actually pay a fixed $50 billion cash bill on tax day? Here's what would likely happen. Musk would be forced to liquidate some of his Tesla and SpaceX stock. This would flood the market with an unprecedented supply of shares. And do you think that buyers are going to immediately purchase $50 billion of stock the second it hits the market? The answer is no. And as soon as Elon starts selling shares to raise that cash, the massive dump would trigger institutional panic, and the stock price would drop significantly. So now the shares that he originally planned to sell won't generate enough cash anymore. So what does he have to do? Sell even more shares at the new lower price, actively driving his own companies into the dirt. This would lead to a textbook market cascade where retail investors panic and dump their portfolios, flooding the market with secondary supply. And with far more sellers than buyers, the price plummets even further. Translation: Khanna's one-time tax will completely destroy the underlying value of the assets that he's trying to tax. By the time that the dust settles, Elon Musk is no longer even close to being a trillionaire, and Tesla and SpaceX's values are crippled. And then all of their shareholders, including middle-class retail investors, would see their retirement accounts evaporate overnight. You can't fund the government with an economic gimmick that vaporizes the very asset that you're trying to tax. It is a completely illiterate economic plan. But somehow, it's not even the wildest thing that Khanna said this week.
And I do believe that once we take power, there has to be accountability. There needs to be accountability for Elon Musk. You know, they're celebrating that he created 4,400 millionaires, but they don't talk about the 4.5 million children around the world who he possibly sentenced to death by dismantling USAID. He needs to answer for that.
Ah, yes, the classic progressive political playbook. Accuse your political enemy of doing a genocide.
He needs to be subpoenaed. He needs to face investigation. He needs to answer for what he did with Doge. That it's not just let's move on.
So there you have it. A sitting U.S. congressman casually claiming that Elon Musk is single-handedly responsible for the deaths of millions of the poorest people on the planet.
nuts. I love that we need to keep pushing the talking point that you just had, that we don't need to celebrate Elon Musk making other people millionaires. If you are the party of pro-life, like you say you are, MAGA, he's killing millions of the poorest people on the planet. And so I think that hypocrisy there is something really stunning.
Keep pushing the talking point. That is the entire progressive media playbook wrapped up in one sentence. It doesn't matter if the claim is completely unhinged, because when it comes to the Democrats, facts take a backseat to feelings. And those comments were picked up by several media outlets, including the New York Post, who tweeted about it on X. Elon Musk replied, "Time to sue this liar." And honestly, who can blame him? If a sitting US congressman went on a popular show and accused you of single-handedly causing a global humanitarian mass casualty event that didn't happen, by the way, and you had a top-notch legal team at your disposal, you'd threaten to sue too. So 2 days later, Congressman Khanna ran back to Jennifer Welch in a desperate attempt to defend himself.
All I did is cite an academic study, the Lancet study, which has said that those USAID cuts that Doge made potentially could lead to the deaths of millions of children around the world. I didn't even think it was very controversial.
I just accused someone of starving 4.5 million children to death. I didn't think it was controversial. What a f***ing asshole.
And the response is to put me in jail or sue me. I mean, it's really a mindset into how the oligarchy operates.
But it needs to be pointed out that when Khanna made his original claim 2 days prior, he never mentioned anything about a study. He just said it as if it was a proven fact.
He now seems intent on saying that it didn't lead to the potential deaths of millions of children.
Yeah, typically when a sitting U.S. congressman goes on a podcast and baselessly accuses someone of mass murdering millions of children, one tends to push back. So the study Khanna is referring to was published last year by the Lancet and authored by a multinational consortium of academics. Mark Weiner of Pirate Wires gave the following excellent analysis. In the study, researchers analyzed mortality trends across 133 countries, comparing those that received more USAID funding than those that received less. After controlling for things like GDP per capita, they estimated that USAID funding prevented roughly 91 million deaths over 2 decades. Then they estimated that continued cuts could mean 14 million more deaths by 2030, including 4.5 million young children. This, of course, assumes we live in a fake world. A world in which Doge's funding reductions remain in place through 2030, unlikely. Where the life-saving waiver the State Department actually issued doesn't exist, it does. Where Congress doesn't turn around and fund emergency AIDS relief at nearly its prior level, it did. And where 2 decades of built-up infrastructure, clinics, training, and supply chains evaporates the moment a grant lapses. It doesn't. And oh, I almost forgot. A world where the United States is the only country on Earth that could ever be moved to fund medicine for the poor. Mark Weiner goes on to point out that several experts have flagged major methodological problems with the Lancet study, but the Democrats, the self-described party of science, could care less. Because we have a democracy to save, so the math be damned. And of course, it's not just Democrats in Congress pushing this disinformation, because the media has done everything they can to paint Doge and the Trump administration as Bond villains, including this digital report from NBC News.
When the Trump administration abruptly shut down USAID in January 2025, Sierra Leone's health ministry said it lost $45 million in funding for maternal and child health projects.
The sudden nature of these cuts is a huge blow.
So wait, the United States has been giving Sierra Leone $45 million a year just for maternal and child health funding? I think that needs a fact check. According to foreignassistance.gov, in fiscal year 2024, the United States allocated nearly $6 million for maternal and child health funding in Sierra Leone. In 2025, we allocated nearly $23 million. That's a year-over-year increase of 281%. So where did this phantom $45 million figure come from? Well, not from a real place, I assure you. And of course, NBC News' Zincle Esamoah couldn't take 5 minutes to look up the public data and verify the math before broadcasting this claim to millions of Americans.
Now to an NBC News Daily original. The Trump administration's federal funding cuts appear to be dramatically shifting maternal health care in the global South.
But actually, it's not original in any way, because the same exact footage from Sierra Leone was broadcast months earlier on Channel 4 in the UK.
We need sutures, we need anesthetic agents to do the surgery. And those are not currently available. Maybe we might die.
An NBC News Daily original.
Anyway, back to Khanna, who resorted to framing himself as a brave, heroic underdog fighting the mean oligarchy, instead of a politician who got caught red-handed spreading misinformation.
Yesterday, Elon Musk spent the morning saying that I should be put in jail or he was going to sue me. Why? Because I stood up to him.
No, it's because he went on a public platform and baselessly accused him of mass murdering children. It's not standing up to the oligarchy. It's called blatant slander and defamation.
Elon, I thought you were a free speech guy. Why not debate me on these issues instead of threatening lawfare?
Ah, the classic debate me bro defense. Look, at the end of the day, Khanna's entire argument relies on an unhinged Lancet projection and a middle school understanding of how corporate equity works, which is pretty embarrassing considering that he's one of the richest members of Congress. The dude is literally the oligarchy. But I guess at the end of the day, when you don't have the facts or the math on your side, attempting to stage a circus is the only play you've got left. Anyway, that's it for now. Head on over to my super cool merch store at don'twalkrun.shop. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. Please subscribe to the channel and hope to see you next time, if there is next time.